Got her.
Okay, so we're going to talk about cultural competency, diversity, age and gender related issues today. I have fun notes. I have DHS, wow, I'm so into my job, NAIC policy, and some of the stuff that's on there, and then one other note. So, I guess I'll start with NAIC's policy on cultural competence and diversity. NAIC's policy is that we're committed to acknowledging and honoring differences in ethnic and other diverse groups of people, and the agency recognizes the vital roles that this plays in emotional well-being, identity, and the therapeutic care of adults, children, and families served. So basically, NAIC is all for the therapeutic part of why acknowledging cultural differences, being competent or making yourself competent on those differences is important for us as an agency and the clients that we see. So it's an important part of what we do here. So this one answers one of the questions on the quiz. As far as recruitment and retention, NAIC strives to be a culturally diverse agency that promotes the recruitment and retention of persons who are representative of the specific cultures served, and that's from leadership positions, management, direct service positions, and support positions. So to make sure that in whatever way possible that we're making sure that every cultural background is represented throughout all of the layers, all the tiers of service here at NAIC. I think the more fun way to do it is we need to go through the questions. I think that makes it more fun, and because we're short on time. So, cultural competency is the ability to work effectively across cultures in a way that acknowledges and respects the culture of the person or organization being served.
True.
Very, very true. So we have to be able to work across cultures with people no matter where they are, especially clinicians. You have to be able to acknowledge and respect those. Age and gender do not have an impact on one's perceptions of cultural differences.
False.
Yes, that is very false. Whatever your age is, that's literally your lens of where you see life. Whatever your gender is, your experiences, that's your lens. And it's valid for every person wherever they are on that spectrum. So it does have an effect on their cultural differences. Cultural blindness is the term for an individual or organization that suggests that cultural differences are inconsequential and of no importance.
True.
That is true. So basically it's saying that differences exist, but they don't affect the work environment or clientele, and that just is not true. Those differences do affect, they do have an effect.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we say, well, I don't see color, or I don't see, gender, or that doesn't really matter, but it also negates the culture of that person, and which is, so it's not one extreme or the other. I mean, it is good, we are all human beings, but our cultural backgrounds do shape us, and it's the lens how we see life and deal with one another.
And I like that you brought that phrase up, because people say that with all sincerity of trying to be, culturally sensitive or respectful, but really what it does is it just kind of whitewashes everything to where like everybody is the same, and we're not all the same. It disacknowledges those differences, and those are what make us unique as individuals. I also did want to note that the instruments that we use do attempt to collect cultural information, but it's slightly inadequate as far as a clinical perspective is concerned. We get much more information in our interactions with people by asking questions and gathering information than we would from instruments and things like that.
And the building of rapport that happens when you see a client over time.
Right.
So I totally agree.
You gain a little bit more than you would on an ASI or whatever.
Yeah.
You get more of that raw data. An agency is not required by law to support cultural diversity.
False.
That is super false. One of the things I think that was brought up was affirmative action. It's the most prominent one that we know of that kind of promotes agencies being intentional about being diverse as far as their, what is that term again, recruitment and retention and clientele being open on both ends. And then last but not least, cultural competency within an agency begins with an individual's own personal level of awareness, regarding their own preconceived ideas and possible biases towards those of other races, religions, education levels, sexual orientation, values, etc.
True.
Very true.
Very true.
Yes, so basically a person should be comfortable bringing who they are into this place and being accepted and treated, depending on where it is, whether it's a staff person or a client. That we're all constantly being introspective. I know I talk to my clients about that, but as clinicians or staff, we should be really introspective in knowing what our perceptions are, what our perspectives are, what we bring to the table, what others bring to the table. Because we have so many people coming through, we have to really be aware of what's happening inside us, and also with our clients. So the two words I have there are self-awareness and acceptance, basically, are the two things you really have to work with on that. Any questions?
I was just gonna put it out there, what happens if you find that you're feeling a bias and you may not even be aware of where that's coming from? What would you do in a situation like that?
Talk to your
I'm
supervisor.
sorry?
No.
Did you say eat?
No, I'm not gonna eat.
EAP.
Oh.
Oh, you could consult, you can contact your
Talk to a
EAP.
counselor that's outside of here to address those issues with the news.
Or staff. I mean, I do that sometimes, like in staff, I'll say, I kind of feel like I have this problem with a client. Maybe y'all can redirect what I'm thinking, you know, because I think we learn a lot of things in relationship, basically, so staffing things.
And definitely your supervisor.
Or if you have a licensure supervisor, by
Yes.
all means,
Yeah, totally.
So what is it you always say, John? Consult.
consult. And it's not uncommon to have people bring up things about their own cultural biases that they did not realize that they had before they became counselors in supervision. It's very common in supervision for supervisors to bring that up.
So if you're really in a room with somebody and being open and transparent here, it's likely that it will break things up, you know, that's why we have the transference and counter-transference things, because it happens.
What was the last two things you said? Self-awareness and what was the last one?
Acceptance.
Okay.
Yeah. Very good. Any other questions? All right, thank you.